Argentina is a country famous for three things: tango, soccer, and economic crises. Although that latter one might change sooner rather than later. Yes, Divio, once again we are talking about lithium, or white gold, or the new oil, and it's the stuff that batteries are made out of. Lithium is what powers your smartphone, your laptop, and maybe even your electric car. As we said in this other video, Argentina is, alongside with Chile and Bolivia, one of the three countries that make up the so-called Lithium Triangle. This is an area where 60 to 80% of the world's discovered lithium reserves are concentrated. From these three countries, Argentina is getting the biggest attention by international investors. Yep, you heard that right, the biggest hedge funds have their eyes on this country. And this is a big surprise given that Argentina used to be the boogeyman of finances, the problem child of economics, and now, well, it's growing into something of a rock star. So today's question is, well, what happened to this country which improved their image in such a short time? Can they really become the leader of the lithium race? And most important of all, can lithium turn Argentina into a new Abu Dhabi? Today we are going to answer all of these questions, but before we get started, let's take a look at the history.
Argentina first.
In the last few years, Argentina had become something of a bogeyman for hedge funds. Under the presidency of Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, Argentina's government did whatever they could to scare away any foreign company who might want to invest in the country.
Bancos extranjeros que obtienen ganancias también son terroristas económicos del pecado de la especulación.
When it comes to the mining and oil industry, Kirchner made an interesting move. In 2008, she passed a law against the repatriation of capital. This means that if an Australian mining company made profit by extracting oil or minerals on Argentinian soil, the government wouldn't allow the company to send that money back to Australia. Kirchner's goal was to force these foreign companies to keep the financial benefits of their mining in the country.
Nevertheless, as you can imagine, the consequence of this law was that most of the foreign companies simply stopped doing business in the country. At the end of the day, I mean, why would they if it was forbidden to enjoy those profits at home? But, well, it was not enough. The real turning point for Argentina came in the year 2012.
Argentina expropriates YPF to Repsol.
Repsol, the largest oil company in Spain, in the year 1998 merged with Argentine company YPF. For many years, this brand was simply called Repsol YPF, but one day Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, in a very Donald Trump-esque fashion, said, well, Argentina first. Hashtag make Argentina great again.
Que las empresas que están aquí,
companies that stay here, even if their shareholders are foreigners, are Argentinian companies.
And now you might wonder, well, what happened next? Well, of course, Repsol pursued several lawsuits with the government of Argentina, but this was not the worst thing. The biggest problem was that after being nationalized, Argentine YPF reduced their oil production in half.
Argentina oil production extends decline as rig activity slows.
Yeah, listen, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, what's the connection between oil production and being owned by private companies or being owned by the government? I mean, there are several state-owned oil companies that work really well. For one example, there is Aramco. This is the biggest dinosaur juice producer, and still it is owned by the Saudi government. The problem here is that both in the oil and the mining industry, you need high-tech gear. Each company has different technologies and patents. In other words, when YPF wanted to drill those oil beds of Vaca Muerta, they needed to utilize a complicated technology called fracking. And, well, there are only a few companies in the world that have the machines and the skills to do this kind of work. This is why it is so common that different oil companies create a joint venture to exploit an oil bed. When Repsol left Argentina, YPF lost a technology partner. And this is why people say that Kirchner fought against those Spanish neoliberals and ended up partnering with the American ones.
Chevron YPF signed $1.5 billion shale oil deal.
But hold on just a second, because, well, this isn't the end of our story. The biggest issue here is what happens when you take over a company from one day to the other. Well, what happens is the rest of the businesses are going to be afraid of you, and good luck trying to convince them to invest in your country. Think about it, let's imagine you have an oil or a mining company. Would you really dare set up a factory and a lot of facilities in a place where the government can just seize all of that from you? I think not. And this, among other factors, is what explains why Argentina today has such a big crisis. But now Argentina has a president called Mauricio Macri, and, well, the times they are a-changing.
White gold rush in Argentina.
In December 2015, Macri took his place in the Pink House. The Pink House is the Argentine version of the White House.
¡Punto! Por eso les digo hoy gracias.
He found a country in the middle of a bankruptcy. Real inflation was higher than 40%, dollars were sold on the black market, and there was no company willing to invest in the country. And all of this was despite them being one of the wealthiest countries when it comes to natural resources. This is why, since the very first moment, Macri has tried to conduct a 180-degree shift compared to what his predecessor did.
Argentina's new government scraps mining taxes.
In other words, Macri knows that lithium is a peerless opportunity to repair the accounting books. Of course, now, no one expects Argentina to become a new Dubai overnight, but this white gold is a huge windfall, and that money could cover the gaps of Argentina's budget without raising taxes and without cutting costs. And, well, this explains laws like this one.
Argentina signs mining deal to unify regulations, attract investment.
In other words, from now on, mining multinationals have an open door to the country, and unlike what happened with the Kirchner era, these foreign companies can do whatever they want with their profits. This is happening because Macri has removed the anti-repatriation law. And if this was not enough, legislation has been put in effect which unifies mining regulations all across the country. This means that the rules are the same no matter where the lithium bed is. Further, the mining companies will not have to pay any special mining tax anymore.
Industry heavyweights Alba Marley Corp, Soquímica y Minera de Chile SA, Eramet SA, and Jiangxi Ganfeng Lithium Company are among groups looking at expanding or building new lithium operations in Argentina.
But hold on for just a second, because, well, things, they are not quite as great as they seem. Look, lithium is a great opportunity for Argentina, but as you know, having natural resources does not mean your country is necessarily wealthy. Many Argentinians fear what they would call a new Potosi. This means that they fear that their country would become flooded with foreign companies that take the resources and leave without bringing any money into Argentina. So the question now becomes, well, what can Argentina do to avoid such a catastrophe?
The real chance of Argentina.
As we said in a previous video, the real business of lithium is not lithium itself, but the added value products you can manufacture with it. At the time when we recorded this video, a metric ton of lithium had a market price of $9,000. Nevertheless, if we take that raw material and we turn it into mobile phone batteries, we could get an income of between $1.5 and $5 million. Of course, this is a very rough estimation, but it does help us understand something important. But hold on just a moment, because this is still not as simple as it looks.
Most of the lithium battery factories are in countries like the United States, Germany, or of course China. These three countries have a world-class network of small companies that provide services and components to the big manufacturing plants. We're talking about logistics, semiconductors, and so on. All of these things make the manufacturing process cheaper and more efficient. But not only that, this network effect is what attracts the best engineers and skilled professionals to these countries. This is essential if you want to create a high-tech industry in a country.
I mean, look, good luck trying to convince a woman who lives in San Francisco and makes a six-figure salary to move to Rosario, Argentina to work in a factory. As you can imagine, that's pretty much impossible. So now you might be wondering, what can Macri do to industrialize his country? Well, the first thing we have to keep in mind is that Silicon Valley, it was not created in a day. Nevertheless, Argentina has a great advantage over California. They can make easy money by selling raw lithium. Of course, this money can be used by the government to simply boost their earnings, but it is also a good opportunity to invest in universities that will train those workers that might start those small companies that are needed in order to get the big factories up and running. Further, the government can also co-finance brand new businesses. This is actually the formula that helped Israel become a technological capital. And, well, so far, it seems that Macri is committed to working this way.
We have learned, we have understood that in addition to our talents, our huge natural resources, we have to add constancy, we have to add rule of law to be predictable.
But wait a minute, because there are some dark clouds on the horizon. All these opportunities Argentina has will disappear if Macri, or whoever follows him, falls back into the temptation of destroying the rule of law and going back to ultranationalism, which could scare away foreigners as it has in many other countries.
And it seems that Cristina Fernández de Kirchner wants to run for office again.
I am not asking you to vote for me. I am not asking you to vote for the people behind me. I am asking you to vote for yourself.
So, well, now it's your turn. Do you think Argentina could restore the rule of law and become a wealthy country thanks to lithium? Or are we going to see a new nationalist backlash and a brand new economic crisis? Well, you can leave your answer in the comments section below. And just before we go today, I got an important request from you. You might have noticed that we rather like using rock music in our videos, and we'd love to hear from anyone who has a band and thinks that their music could be a good fit for us. We will, of course, give credit to any music that we do use in a video. If you are interested in this, do drop us an email. That's info@visualpolitik.net. Also, do not forget to check out our friends at the Reconsider Media podcast. They provided the vocals in this episode that are not mine. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you next time.
And if you want to learn more about politics and hear even more of my lovely voice, you can join us at Reconsider Media. We have a podcast at reconsidermedia.com/podcast. See you there.